Punxsutawney Phil did not see his shadow this year, but the Groundhog Meeple is predicting a whole roundup of news from the board game world for you for this week of February 4th, 2019.
In Germany, there was a Spielwarenmesse toy fair, which there was actually a lot of cool board game stuff. There was a bunch of new games in German. There was one, I think, called Red Peak. If you want to check out more of it, you can check out the BoardGameGeek Twitter that had a whole bunch of pictures. But they include a bunch of new expansions. First off, Space Cowboy had a lot of stuff. They are announcing a whole new line of two-player games, starting with Jaipur. And the creator of Jaipur is actually going to help with the other games as well. This is really cool. We're big fans of Jaipur. And it seems like the other games are going to be similar sort of, I guess, difficulty and depth. So that's that perfect, I think, level for a two-player game. In addition, Time Stories, they announced a bunch of information for that. The White Cycle is going to be ending with the Madame expansion, which apparently is going to sort of wrap up the storyline there and leave you on a cliffhanger. Very excited to see what they do there. And they're starting a new line called the Blue Series, with the first one being Midsummer Night. Now, apparently this Blue Series will be completely standalone, meaning you won't need any of the base sets or anything, and can be played in any order. So I don't know if they're just going to ditch the whole storyline thing and just try to keep each one as sort of their fun little episode. I think both have great possibilities. I'm very curious to see what they do with that. But we also got some cool stuff from Ravenberger and sort of an expansion for the El Dorado game. And now it's getting an expansion, the Quest for El Dorado, the Golden Temples. We played this game as well. We did enjoy this, and we like sort of the taking the deck building but changing a bit with the terrain movement. Mm-hmm. So overall, I think this is a lot of really cool information. And, you know, this is just, like I said, scratching the surface. That the Peak game I mentioned earlier, there's some games that in German, I don't know if they're coming out, at least in America, while all this sounds like 2019 too. So within, hopefully, this year.
Yeah, there's definitely some really cool stuff. Good idea to go look at it on BoardGameGeek's Twitter account. But I think for me, the Time Stories news is the most interesting to discuss. I feel like that has the most meat on that bone. The idea that they're really just totally changing up how they sell their games from a thing that even technically you could buy those expansions and you could play them in any order and it would be fine, but you still needed the base. And it seems like now they're really marketing it as more actually its own thing.
There are some of them, because I've played a couple more than you, that seem to be like, it's not like full on, but I think this is like...
But you could get away with it.
I think part of it is, I think when we were talking a while before, you said like there was the implication that you had to do in order. This is like, we're saying right now, you don't need to be in order. This is just have fun and play the way you want.
Yeah, you don't even need to have played the first one. Yeah, so it's like very, very different. And I wonder how they will be priced as well, and how they're going to change that, because presumably the gameplay, like in Time Stories, you still needed that board and those dice. So if you buy all these, are you going to have just like a bunch of sets of the same dice?
My idea might be that that they could do to help lower prices. There's probably a paper mat. So, like, if you don't have the base board, you got this paper one. It's not as good, but if you have the base, you got a nice board.
That could be.
Now, the die is a whole other issue. And what they actually might do, I think, is that each set will actually have its own die, so they could customize that for whatever the scenario is.
That could be cool.
Which I think would be really awesome. What I would love to see, too, is because if you haven't played Time Stories before, this is, I mean, maybe there's some other, but I remember this is one of the first ones in my mind that had a save state in the box. If they actually made a sort of custom, this is the white box designed for every white scenario. And then maybe after the blue series is done, they have the blue box, so you can put all the pieces together in that.
Yeah.
Because that would be also a great space saver too. But it's definitely interesting. I mean, yeah, Space Cowboy also, that two-player thing, like we said, big fans of Jaipur, so I think that's perfect to make more games in that style and depth. But Quest for El Dorado 2, we had a lot of fun playing that, so I'm very curious to see what the expansion holds.
Yeah.
But there, like, so much came, of course it came from Germany. That's sort of the homeland of board games.
Yeah, it really is. So go check it all out. Let us know what you're most excited about. We'll see, because like you said, all that stuff, I know. I think the Time Stories, there's multiple of those blue sets that should be coming out this year.
If I recall. Yeah, two or three,
so we'll see. In addition to posting gaming news on their Twitter account, BoardGameGeek is of course a very popular online board game compendium and community, and they have just introduced a brand new feature to their website called the Fans Also Like section. If you look at any individual game title page from now on, there's going to be a little section on there that shows you what people who liked that game also liked. So they take the fans' ratings of that game and see what those people also rated highly in addition to that, and you can get an idea if you think, oh, I like this game, I like this style of game, what else is similar genre that I might want to look into if I'm new to the hobby or I just want to get a taste of something different. It's under the More and News section underneath the top bar of a game page, so it's a little hard to find, it's a little out of the way, but it's as far as I can remember, outside of their attempt to overhaul the design of the site, one of the first in a long time actually like new features of BoardGameGeek.
Yeah, and this, in the article mentioned, it was actually they got help from one of the guys from Netflix. Now, I'm going to say this, that I'm actually not a big fan of the recommendation sites for Netflix and Amazon, probably because I feel like when I see the recommendations, it's just like, here's our original stuff. I'm like, look, I mean, it could be great, but you're not actually showing me what I think is connected. But because BoardGameGeek is more of, they don't have to do their own board game, maybe they have like a small selection in their store, I think this is going to be probably more true to what actually you'd want to see in a recommendation site, which I think is really good.
Yeah.
Granted, I mean, we could have a whole video about talking about the rating system for BoardGameGeek and like taking some things for granted if something's a higher or lower, because that might not be as perfect as you might expect. But still, I think it's a great place for people to start off. In particular, some of those early games. Like if you do play something like Catan, or you also play something like the DC deck building game, I think there's a very good chance you're going to see a game that's going to be like, all right, you got deck building done, here's one that takes it to the next level.
Yeah, for what it's worth, from what I've looked at on the pages, it seems like a pretty good system. It seems like the recommended games from a certain page, not only are they good games usually, but they're similar to the game in both in theme and in mechanics and genre. So it's not just like, oh, here's a bunch of random games that this person also liked, but they don't really have anything to do with each other. They do actually seem related. I think it actually is a pretty good system.
Yeah, if BoardGameGeek can completely finish overhauling their site, I think they're, well, how long did they start?
Like, it's been at least a year.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. But if they can, I think it's like still, if they can get all things like smooth it down, streamline some parts, it would be one of the, compared to a lot of other sites, it's pretty good for a resource for a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a reason they really don't have any competition. Like, they're just they encompass everything. It's an encyclopedia of information. So yeah, hopefully they keep continuing to push out more new things like this, even though they have almost no competition.
One of the popular games at last game's Gen Con was Villainous, the Disney board game where you play as the villains. And there was an expansion to be released in March, but it turns out it might have been released early. There have been signs of photos, as well as apparently some people have been able to purchase the game at Target, which means they've been able to see what comes in the new expansion. The expansion is called Villainous Wicked to the Core, and it actually can be played standalone. It allows you to play as the villains from Snow White, The Princess and the Frog, and Hercules. Well, we thought that was interesting, first of all, early release, so if you're a big fan of the game, you might want to go check out your targets now. But the other thing is that this game, the original box, if you didn't know, had a poll on the back saying who you'd like to see next. We have played this game, and I definitely think if you're a big Disney fan, definitely something worth check out. We'll probably do a full review on it sometime in the future. Mm-hmm. But initially when I showed the poll, because when I told you the list of villains, I remember you're like, how is this villain and this villain not in there? Right. And when we looked at this expansion, you were shocked that they weren't in that as well. Yeah,
they're not. I don't think any of the ones in the expansion are like top tier Disney villains. I guess Evil Queen has a history to her.
Well, the thing is,
that's your retro pick.
Yeah, when we looked at it, we like Evil Queen's, I think, the retro pick, but Hades, I definitely think is highly voted. Would be one of the highly voted for. And putting on our little tinfoil hats here, we think that what happened is the poll, they took the top 5 and actually designed it split up so you would buy each expansion, so you didn't have fully loaded one and to ignore it. Because I know for you, you're still like, how is Scar I think is the big one that
Scar, yeah, Gaston, a lot of people talk about. And I definitely think that, yeah, they don't want to put all their best stuff in one set, which makes sense. And also there's the possibility that maybe it just takes more time to develop some of them, and their release plans were maybe already in motion, so some of these will be pushed out later. I kind of get it. And I do think it's cool and interesting that it's standalone as well, since even though it only has 3 villains in it, it's kind of interesting just by the nature of the game, because each character has their own board and their own set of cards that you almost can't, even if they didn't want it to be standalone, like it is, because there's not really any other thing.
Well, I think, to me, it reminds me of Smash Up. Technically, the expansions are all standalone.
Right.
It's just the number of players you can have, and obviously, you probably do, like, if you're getting the Smash Up, odds are you're going to get them all, or at least a lot of them. So, you want to mix this one and this one. So, the same thing with the Disney one. I'm sure if you're a big fan, you don't just want 3, you want them all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited still to see what they do with the characters, how they play. I do think, like the Princess and the Frog guy is a cool villain.
Right, so. He's just, I don't think the Princess and the Frog is as big of a movie compared to, like...
I don't think it's going to be selling any games to have that on the box, but it's...
Well, that's why I think the Evil Queen's on the box for this one.
Yeah.
Or her silhouette.
Yeah.
But I would also love to see them, since it seems like they're spreading them out like that, if they would actually, the other 2 slots would go to maybe villains that wouldn't be mentioned. Like, what if Black Cauldron got a throw? I know Disney doesn't want to bring up that movie ever again.
Maybe Brer Fox from Song of the South. Really throw it all in there.
So let us know what your thoughts on the new expansion villains, or if there is any conspiracy behind this.
Here's an unlikely mashup between the tabletop gaming world and the music world. The band The Mountain Goats went live on a Twitch stream from Wizards of the Coast headquarters, and they announced their brand new album, In League with Dragons, and even played a couple of songs from it. Now, this album and these songs don't have anything specifically to do with Wizards of the Coast. It turns out they're just fans of Magic the Gathering and other role-playing games that are Dungeons & Dragons related, and they thought it would be a cool thing to get together and make this happen. So they premiered a couple of songs, they played them live on the show with a big old dragon statue behind them. If you missed it, you can check out the Wizards of the Coast Twitch channel and still find it. I believe it should still be recorded there for you to check out right now. But this is just kind of a funny, weird thing. If you don't know the Mountain Goats, they're this folk rock band that are like alternative indie rock. They're pretty cool. They've been around for a while, and supposedly the bunch of the songs in the new album are kind of fantasy related or about wizards and dragons and things.
Yeah, I like these kinds of weird mashups that come up, because I think the more that happens, the more that you get the terminology into just general mainstream, which I think is cool. It's sort of fun, if you're listening to a random song and they mention a keyword or word that, like, I can't think of a good one right off the top of my head, of course, like Magic Missile or something, you're like, I know what that's from. And, it feels like you're being acknowledged for your hobby. It's not just a small niche anymore.
Yeah, that's
which
cool.
I know there's pros and cons of growing big, but it's sort of nice when you have these mix-ups too. Also because you get, it's like such weird things. Like we mentioned, I think a while back, Vin Diesel, with D&D, it's always fun when you find people who were fans and then they do weird stuff, because that's when you get people to be like, oh wait, D&D's cool now?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's people who like the Mountain Goats who don't know anything about role-playing games, and maybe they draw some of that crowd in.
Yeah, that actually happened. I think Imagine Dragons was a fan of League of Legends, so they did a mashup there and did a whole cool song with that. But now, of course, we need them to do songs for Magic the Gathering, one for each color, of course, and maybe a Moby song for Jace Berlin.
Yeah, I think that they could get on that. Maybe The Cure. I don't think they make music anymore. What's the
Simple Plan?
Yeah, they could get in there for something. Yeah, it's neat. It's a fun little thing. So like I said, go check it out if you missed it on their Twitch channel.
Of course, you want to know what you could buy right now. So we've got 1 Week Ultimate Werewolf, which we actually played at Gen Con. You can go back to our videos to see our impressions on that. We also got Evil High Priest from Sandy Peterson, which I backed and just got, so can't wait for that to hit the table. We've also got an expansion for the very well acclaimed A Feast for Odin, titled A Feast for Odin, The Norwegians, so we'll have to see how that is received. And of course we have Resident Evil 2, the board game, not the video game.
Dual Powers is a new political war-themed game from Thunderworks Games. Then there's Raccoon Tycoon, which involves cute little critters dressed up in people clothes. Both of those are Kickstarter picks we had from 2018. And there's a new expansion for Arkham Horror, the card game, The Circle Undone, which is a deluxe expansion that you'll need to get to complete your set. And there's also the new Mystic Vale digital version, which is out on Steam. So if you want to play Mystic Vale, and instead of actually sleeving the cards, it'll just do it for you. You can do that as well right now.
Yeah, a lot of awesome reasons, both in the expansion and new release. I hope no one who wants to play with cute raccoon animals gets confused and ends up in Raccoon City.
Oh, what a great connection you made.
I'm terrible.
I'm interested in the Resident Evil 2 board game. I was thinking about how weird it is, and how did they plan this out, that the Resident Evil 2 board game came out like within a week of the remake video
They might have.
Because usually board game releases are so hard to pin down. So like, I'm impressed if they made that work, especially because that was a Kickstarter too.
It was.
So, good job, Capcom and Steamforged Games, for making that work. Let us know in the comments what games you're looking forward to. Are you continuing your Arkham Horror journey? Are you going to try out any of these other new titles, expanding Feast of Odin? I don't know.
Where you are in time stories, what are your thoughts with the whole new cycle idea? As well as, of course, the Disney villains. Were you able to get a copy ahead of time?
Yeah, and who do you want to see in the next one? Who's your top villain of choice?
Unfortunately, we weren't allowed.
So maybe next go around. Talk to us there. Talk to us on Facebook, on Twitter, at Roll4Crit, all these places. And hopefully we'll see you guys soon. Until then, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this was the News Roundup from Roll4Crit. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome board game content from Roll4Crit.
And please leave a comment. We're lonely.